Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with John Morgan!
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. Last week, big episode. We talked about the controversy, the betting scandal that was James Krause and UFC. Moving forward, side note, another one of the Canadian betting services put UFC back online. That's a win for MMA and all sports fans across the globe. This week, another huge episode coming off a stacked Saturday and Friday, UFC 282 and Bellator 289. Controversy in both, and we will touch on that. But before I touch on it, let's bring in the man, the myth, the legend himself, John Morgan. What's up, Hal?
Oh man, it's good. It's crazy because there's a lot to talk about, and so much of it is about like not necessarily the action of the fights themselves, but what happened around the action, which is crazy. But that's what this sport is all about. But yeah, UFC 282, Bellator 289, busy weekend, and of course the pay-per-view at the UFC started out crazy. 10 straight finishes, man. I thought it was going to be a perfect night. I thought maybe it was like that perfect game. I didn't want to talk about it as it was going on, right? I thought every fight was going to be a finish, and then we end up with controversy. But
were you sitting in the corner like a pitcher would be?
That's
not
it.
Talking to anybody?
Don't say nothing. Don't talk to nobody about it. We don't mention the no-hitter that's going on as everybody's getting finishes, and then then it ends with a bit of controversy. But I guess that's kind of what makes the sport fun sometimes, right? Is some of the discussion about it. Maybe not fun in the moment, but fun to talk about it afterwards.
And there's a lot to talk about. And one, I don't want to bury the lead, all right? We have Glover Teixeira, an interview with the title challenger, former UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, Glover Teixeira. John Morgan sat down with him with a with a Grind City Media exclusive and Underground exclusive. So be sure, stay around, check it out. It will be dropping this in at the tail end of this podcast. But the reason we had him on is because there is just shakeup everywhere in this light heavyweight division. And UFC 282 main event, Jan Blachowicz, Magomed Ankalaev ends in a controversial split draw. Now, Jan Blachowicz kind of changed his tune around this split draw. Take it from there. What happened?
Yeah, it was a bit wild, right? I mean, it started out, for me anyway, I had the fight scored for Magomed Ankalaev. It was a very, very tightly contested fight, right? And I think basically it comes down to one of a couple things. It started out very competitive. We knew neither guy was going to really take crazy chances to start out. Both of them are powerful. Both of them are a little bit kind of reserved. They're not berserkers where they just go out there crazy. They're kind of tactical in what they do. The opening round, I thought, was for Magomed Ankalaev, right? Then Jan Blachowicz starts to take over. Rounds 2, rounds 3, leg kicks are nasty, man. Looks like he's going to end the fight. I mean, he's got Magomed Ankalaev hopping around on his legs and just, beat the heck out of him. And then Ankalaev digs deep in round 4, turns to the takedown, gets on top, changes the whole momentum of the fight, does it again in round 5, closes out with a dominant round. So it comes down to me, the way I had scored it, I had Ankalaev 1, 4, and 5. So I have it 48-47 for Magomed Ankalaev. Now, there's a couple things that happened along the way. Round 1 was a very, very close competitive round, and some people favored that one for Blachowicz instead. Also, round 5, not close at all. Absolutely just one-sided. Blachowicz could do nothing off of his back. You start wondering, is it a 10-8? Now, for me, I didn't go 10-8 in my own personal scorecard because I didn't feel like there was enough damage, but I've talked to a lot of qualified people afterwards who did go 10-8. Nevertheless, the scorecards come together, and what do we get? Well, Bruce Buffer starts reading it out, and you got one score for Blachowicz. Oh, my gosh, we're going to have a split decision. We got one score for Ankalaev. Oh, my gosh, the tension. What's going to happen? Third score comes out, and it's a draw. So we end up with a split draw. The belt remains vacant. Nobody wins, and everybody just walks away disappointed. I mean,
after all the lead up to this, with Yuri dropping the strap, right? Or handing the strap over. Then it's like, why doesn't Glover get this fight, get this opportunity? There was controversy. Did he accept the fight? Did he not accept the fight? Just to end into the same place we started.
Absolutely crazy. Absolutely. So we go to here's the wild part. So we go to the post-fight press conference and Dana White walks in and the whole media, we're just kind of looking at each other like, man, what a mess. What is going to happen now? This is insane. What do we do? And Dana White walks in and he's kind of in a good mood. And you're like, what? Why is he in a good mood? Like that was, first of all, it wasn't the most exciting fight of all time. And then to not be the most exciting fight of all time and still not even get a resolution out of it, and we still have no champion, I figure he's going to be in a terrible mood. And he kind of walks in, he's kind of in a good mood. And, hey, so basically the bottom line is I just asked him, what'd you think of the fight? And he says, well, I kind of checked out of it. He's like, I zoned out. It was such a slow fight. I wasn't even enjoying it. Oh, okay, fair enough. So what do we do now? We still don't have a champion. He said, well, what do we do now? We do Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill at UFC 283 in Brazil in January, and we put the belt back up for grabs. And I'm like that's done? You're serious? He's done. We're doing it. So we go from not knowing what's going on with the title to having a new title fight.
I got to stop you there, though, because now we're going to hear from Glover Teixeira firsthand, right? But according to Jamal Hill and some other, they didn't even know that they were in a title fight. They didn't know this was coming up. So, like, is it done in Dana White's mind? And it'd be like, okay, well, these guys would be dumb not to take this opportunity. Is that really how it just kind of like went down?
I think so. Listen, I'm hoping to talk to Jamal Hill later today and get his side of the story as well. I've seen some of the social media posts and stuff as well. But I think what happens a lot of time in these situations is, they'll talk to a fighter's reps, and the rep is like, trust me, my guy's in. My guy's in. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. And what comes along with that. A new contract is going to come along with that. More money is going to come along with that. Potential pay-per-view points is going to come along with that. So I think what does happen sometimes in these miscommunications where a fighter says, I didn't even know. I saw it on social media. I saw it on TV, is that it's not that the UFC just made a decision without even consulting anybody. Usually what happens is you'll talk with the fighter's manager, the representative, and the manager representative say, don't worry, my guy's in, let's go.
Makes sense, right?
I think so. I mean, who's going to turn it down, right? What's coming along. I mean,
listen, if you gave me the opportunity at the light heavyweight strap, I'd take it. I'd take it right now, especially if there was a bunch of zeros attached to it.
But that's it. I mean, that's 100% it, right? I mean, if your guy is active and in training, every guy and girl out there, they're trying to move themselves up the ladder so they can get a shot at a UFC championship. I mean, when you get that, that's where the big money comes along. That's where the pay-per-view points come along. And also, you win a UFC title, you get that reputation forever. That stays with you forever. Former UFC champion carries some cachet with it. You know what I mean? So unless there's an injury, and that would be really the only thing that would preclude you from doing it, is if you were injured and you were like, man, I can't take this right now. Otherwise, you're going to take the opportunity.
And gosh, what a shakeup would happen if there's an injury in this last month. Boom. I'm sorry I put it out in the universe.
Don't even do it, man. What are you doing?
Yeah. So one controversy down to another controversy. Now, a lot of controversy, and we're going to get into who may have been responsible for some of that controversy, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon, not a split decision. Unanimous across the board. How did John Morgan score it?
I had it 29-28 for Jared Gordon, to be honest with you. So when I heard unanimous,
what round did you give him? The two?
Two. Yeah. Two was close. When I heard 29-28 across the board, I'm like, yep. And to be honest with you, I thought even 30-27 Jared Gordon wasn't the worst score possible. I mean, they were very close, competitive rounds. I don't know. I was a little bit surprised at this result. I know Paddy Pimblett came out afterwards, and Paddy was like, man, I thought I should have had it 30-27. I thought I took all three rounds. I didn't see that. Now, I will say this. They were close rounds. They were competitive rounds. I don't think round one was competitive, and I think that's the part that maybe shocks me the most is out of those 29-28 scores, two of them, Doug Crosby and Ron McCarthy, included round one. And that was the round that I thought was most clearly for Jared Gordon. I thought round two was very close, but Paddy Pimblett kind of closed it strong, had a nice finish to it. And I thought, you go back and see my tweets live. I'm like, man, was close.
He's going to need a finish.
I said that.
I read it in real time.
I did. I thought Paddy was going to need a finish. So I thought it was potentially 2-0 at that point. But I thought, I was like, I'm not sure. It might be 1-1. It might be 2-0. Wasn't sure. And then round three, Not a lot happened in round 3. Paddy Pimblett kind of admitted at that point his ankle was jacked up. He had an injury. He kind of put it on cruise control. Jared Gordon thought he had 2 rounds in the bag. He put it on cruise control. So it wasn't much to score in the 3rd round. And when there's not much to score, then you can't really, see it as too controversial one way or the other, because now you're talking about one punch might have changed it. One
just
kick
throwing it up in the air and letting the cards fall where they may at that point. But
100%. But the first round, that's the one that throws me off.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about a guy who had I don't want to get into this. I just got to throw it in there. A guy who had a controversial week, Paddy Pimblett, and it ends in controversy. The week ends in controversy.
It definitely did, man. He had the whole personal issue with Ariel Helwani and all the thing that was coming out there with the whole, the podcast that he did with Dana White and then the rebuttal and all that. And it just really made him the center of attention a lot. I mean, he definitely was the center of attention all week. There's no question about it. I mean, at the press conference, the weigh-ins, all the biggest pop was for Paddy Pimblett all week. I mean, he was the biggest discussion point here. So, listen, I tried to tell people coming in, I think this fight's going to be a lot more competitive than you think it is. This is not a setup fight. This is not a setup fight. And a little surprised with the result, to be honest with you.
Controversy in the main, controversy in the co-main. There was zero controversy in the opening bout of the main card. The people's main event, as we talked it, which was Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria. And did we see it going down that way? I, for one, did not. I knew this was going to be a dogfight, or I thought it was going to be a dogfight. Didn't end up that way.
It ended up as a very one-sided dogfight, didn't it? Yeah, listen, I was talking to Kevin Iole and some other folks around me earlier, and we were talking as the fight was about to start. I was like, look, I think Ilia Topuria is going to win this. I really do think he's a quality fighter, but I just thought it was going to be a better fight, man. I didn't realize it was going to be so one-sided. I thought Topuria had what it took to get the fight done, but not like this. I mean, he was in charge of this fight from start to finish. Bryce Mitchell, Thug Nasty, credit to him. I mean, he's a dog, and he did do his best to try to fight, but he was just getting manhandled in there, man. This had to be an eye-opening performance on both sides. I mean, for Bryce Mitchell,
and
man, I'm sure he did not expect.
On your tweet, you said he put the featherweight division on notice.
Absolutely, man. Topuria is a future title challenger. If you weren't sold on the man before, you better be sold on him now. This dude is the real deal, and man, I'm excited to see where his career goes from here, because this was a statement win.
It was a statement win, and listen, I got to give credit where credit's due. Like I don't cut, like, Thug Nasty is one of those guys that I won't bet against. Like, he's just got this crazy gene in him, right? And he's got so much talent. And I said, listen, his striking is tremendously underrated. He outstruck Barbosa, right? But he was clearly behind the 8 ball in the striking in this fight. And I want to go back to early in round 1. And I think if these guys fight 10 times, it doesn't end up this way 10 times. I think Topuria beats him the majority of the time. I think he is the better fighter. It showed on Saturday night. But Bryce Mitchell got hit hard early, and it was one of those things where you just never recover. It's a snowball. It's just going downhill, and the snowball is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that happens in these high-level fights. You get clipped once hard, that power meter don't rank back up.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that one. I talked to a couple of other colleagues who said, man, did you notice the look on Bryce Mitchell's face? There just seemed to be like a weird look on his face, and I think it was because of that. There was some, is he panicking? Is he overwhelmed? And listen, that might have been a little bit of that. I mean, there was a moment I remember when Topuria literally just manhandled him and threw him down on the floor. It was like, wow. I mean, Bryce Mitchell is a great grappler, and he wasn't able to get out of it. But I think you're right. I think he got touched early on, and it was just kind of always a little bit of a daze, a little bit of a fog for the rest of it, and he had a trouble fighting out of that. So, listen, this Topuria, man, again, the real deal. The grappling is on point. The striking. That's what's craziest about this.
He said he was going to sub Bryce Mitchell. He subbed Bryce Mitchell. Called a shot.
Well, that's what's nuts about this. If you look at his UFC run, a lot of people that didn't see Ilia Topuria before he came into the UFC look at him and say, man, be careful. This is a dangerous knockout artist. That's not the way he started in the game. Right. He started as a dangerous grappler. So when you got a guy that can submit you, when you got a guy that can knock you out, when you got a guy that's right in the confidence of Topuria, this man is dangerous.
What a debut performance on the I call it the showcase of the prelims, the main event of the prelims. Raul Rosa Jr., freshly 18 years old, and he goes out there and throttles. First round submission. Where's the ceiling for this kid?
Eric, man, I'm so impressed by this kid's debut. And you know what else was crazy was the buzz in the arena as he walked in. This man is already a star. People are interested in this 18-year-old kid. T-Mobile Arena was
like 18 by a month. It's not like he's almost 19.
So true. Yeah, he qualified for the UFC when he was 17, right? Dana White's Contender Series. But no, listen, I think the guy has all the talent in the world. It's clear. What's more impressive to me right now is his mindset, his confidence, the fact that he wasn't shaken, right? I mean, he's been working for this since he was a little kid, and then he got to that moment, and he delivered in that moment. You wonder, okay, you say you're ready for this. You say you're ready for the big crowd. You say you're ready for the big arena. You say you're ready for the UFC. But what happens when you get in there and you get a little nervous, right? I mean, look, you see it, you know, an NBA player, you know, walking out there on their court for the very first time, dreamed it their whole life. But do they put up 50 points in their first game? Probably not. This dude put up 50 in his first game. You know what I mean? That's what he did out there. Now, listen, there's going to be more difficult matchups along the way. This was an entry-level matchup, of course. You know, this was
against a guy 10-6, so it wasn't, you know.
So that's so the hard part is, listen, when you say what's the ceiling, I don't know that I know that yet. I don't know that I know. I mean, it seems to be very high. The people that train with him, the people that are around with him, they say it's up there at the top. It's championship level. I'm still a little bit worried. The kid is 18 years old, and there's a whole lot to happen between now and being a UFC champion, right? But I will say this, the grappling skills that he has, unquestionable, and the confidence and the composure that he has in a pressure-packed situation, that's unshakable as well. So, you know, I'm not ready to dub this man. There's some guys where I look at, the first time I saw Khabib Nurmagomedov, I looked at him and said, oh, that dude is a future UFC champion.
Yeah.
You know, and I always say this, and I always qualify by saying this. I don't know that necessarily they're going to be a champion, but I know they're going to get to a title fight, and then we see what happens. I look at Ilia Topuria, right, and I say, that's a dude that's going to fight for a UFC title someday. I don't know if he'll win it, but he'll get there someday. I don't know that I'm ready to say that yet about Raul Rosas Jr., but I will say this, man. The upside is there. He deserves to be in the UFC, and we'll see where he takes it from here.
I went back and rewatched it because I wanted to kind of wrap my head around on Saturday when I was watching the prelims. You know, I got kids running around. I'm like, shut up. I got to watch this kid. So I can't like intently watch it at that point. You know, but I saw the other destruction that he did, and I was utterly impressed. I went back and watched it yesterday. And one little thing caught my eye. When you said confidence, that's the thing that I took out of it, even entering the cage. Now, we know he was talking smack in the buildup, but when he enters the cage, he does the Anthony Pettis running and jumping off the cage all the way around the circle. He was not shy of those lights. He was embracing it.
And that I agree with you. That's the part that may be the most amazing, right? Is that 18 years old, you know, octagon jitters are a real thing. Going in there in front of 18,000 people. I mean, and again, that building was electric. They were on their feet for that, man. I mean, the fact that you don't get those wide eyes, that you don't go, oh, a little bit nervous. No, you know exactly. This is what you're born for. This is what you were made to do. I completely agree with you. We still haven't seen a whole lot of his stand-up yet. We haven't seen him get touched, you know, and see how he reacts to that. There's a whole bunch of tests for him to happen along the way. But as far as that first test of can you be confident in there? Can you handle the moment and not be overwhelmed? Pass that with flying colors.
Flying colors. A lot of controversy, UFC 282 with some definitive statements along the way. More controversy the night before. Friday, Bellator 289, Rafael Stotts, Danny Sabatello in the semifinals of the Grand Prix, split decision victory for Stotts, which I agree with. But when these scorecards got read, holy moly, 50-45 Sabatello?
That was bizarre. That was bizarre to say the least, man. And listen, Danny Sabatello, I enjoy listening to this kid talk, man.
Hell yeah, he's fun as hell.
He's one of the biggest trash talkers in the game, and
he's got that little weird voice going on too, with the glasses and the bleach blonde hair with the bandana. I'm here for it.
The Italian gangster, man. I'm all here for it. But yeah, you're right. But 50-45 was just I couldn't believe that one. That was one of the most bizarre scorecards I've ever seen in my life. I mean, listen, there's something to talk about his control time, his grappling, all this, but not 50-45. It was bizarre to say the least. Fortunately, the right guy won in Rafion Stott, so it didn't affect it. But it was one that kind of caught your attention. You go, what's happening here?
Now, put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it, right? We have to talk about the judging controversy. Can't get away from it, especially we couldn't get away from the betting scandal last week. Can't get away from the judging controversy this week. But there's two big notable upsets on Bellator 289 that we need to touch on. Highly touted, two-time All-American wrestler in Kyle Crutchmer was going against a guy who may have been on his last Bellator leg, coming off two straight losses after 3 straight victories in Bellator, and a guy that was highly touted, Jaleel Willis. He was like a 3.5 to 1 dog going against Kyle Crutchmer, and Jaleel Willis goes out there, dominates, outstrikes him, defends all 12 takedowns. We talked off air about this fight, and I know Jaleel Willis personally is a good friend of mine, and you go, ooh, he's fighting Crutchmer. Damn, did he pass that test?
He made a statement. And as you said, it was a statement that he needed to make, right? I mean, I don't think this was the kind of fight that Bellator put together to say, let's set up a showcase for Jaleel Willis. You know what I mean? He had some victories and had made some big statements early on, but it looked like, okay, maybe Jaleel isn't the guy that we thought he was, right? Because that early run, as you mentioned, you thought, okay, hold on, man. This guy's somebody we need to pay attention to in the division. Then he has a setback. You go, okay, well, maybe he just got hot at the right time and nah, this isn't the guy. But, man, he turned in a phenomenal performance against Kyle Crutchmer, who, you're right, man. I said it coming. I was like, I know Jaleel, and I'm not saying he's not going to win this fight, but this is a tough one for him. Crutchmer's the real deal. And Willis looked absolutely phenomenal. You talk about statement performances. This was a statement performance for Jaleel Willis. Hey, that guy you thought I was when I first got here, yeah, that's who I am. This was a big win for Jaleel Willis.
Huge win, and let's go to a huge loss. The highly touted 1-0 Patrick Downey coming in. Tons of controversy in his past. He seemed like that guy that just embraces the controversy. May have turned over a new leaf after a lot of legal troubles in college, being thrown off of a wrestling team, but still an All-American, still of this, still of that. Coming in, he lays waste to his first Bellator opponent in 30 seconds. Comes in, takes in a not highly touted Christian Eccles. But if, he's from Alabama. I've heard of this guy. Right? He's not too far away from me. Everybody knew this dude was tough. And I actually talked to Big Tuna, Ben Parrish, 2 nights ago. And he was like, hell yeah, I knew Christian Eccles was going to win it. Right? He goes out there and crushes Pat Downey. Oh my goodness.
First round knockout, under 2.5 minutes. Amazing. I mean, a big win. This is the tough part, man, with guys like Patrick Downey, and it's one of the things that Bellator does well, but it's what happens, right? What Bellator has to do is, because they're in competition with the UFC, they're in competition with the PFL, they're in competition with one championship for talent, right? And what Bellator has done is say, hey, listen, we'll sign these guys early on. We'll sign guys at 0-0 just because we see their athletic upside. We see the potential for what they can be. And Patrick Downey, you take anybody that's, an established, talented wrestler, that's a heck of a base to start from, right? And Bellator rolls the dice on these guys. And they say, listen, man, we'll sign these guys up. We'll put them in developmental contracts because we believe that they can be big deals. But the problem is they're not complete fighters yet, right? And they're fighting in a premier promotion as they're learning. This is when most guys are on the regional stage, when nobody's watching them compete except for, 150 people in a ballroom or whatever as they're making their debut. And guys like Patrick Downey, listen, they're taking a chance on themselves as well. But this is what can happen. So, you don't want to say, hey, man, well, that just shows you that Patrick Downey will never be a talented fighter.
Aaron Pico is proof of that.
100%. What a great reference, right? I mean, you have to take these chances, but you don't know what you don't know. Early on, you have that athletic background, you have that wrestling background, you have some, but you still got to learn to compete. So, a shocking result to say the least.
900, -900 favorite.
I was going to say the odds were insane. A shocking result, but one that I don't think necessarily caps who Downey can be at some point in his future. It's just that, look, he's still learning to fight, and it's something that you have to – these are skills that have to be developed over time, and look, this will be an eye-opener for him.
Could it be the best thing that ever happened to him, truth be told?
I mean, it's funny
Like,
because
listen, talent gets you so far, and then now it's like, okay, listen, I ain't unbreakable like I thought I was. I mean, listen, like he's. I kind of looked up his past, and whether I categorize it rightly or wrongly, I don't know. I just read about him, right? And he had some controversy coming in. Been kicked off a wrestling team, multiple felony assault charges along the way in college. It seems like a guy now, to his credit, he says, hey, listen, I'm not that guy anymore. I'm getting better. I'm focusing on MMA. But it leaves you with this, like, I have this big persona, like I'm untouchable. Look at what I've done. Look at my career so far. I'm undefeated in the streets. I'm undefeated. Well, not undefeated on the mats, but I'm an established guy there. I can then take my talents here. And then now with a setback like that, it's happened to a lot of people. Aaron Pico comes in. Hey, well, hold on. I got to slow the brakes down. I'm going to develop my tools.
So listen, here's what's funny is you're absolutely right. Now, I always say this when somebody says, is it the best thing that could ever happen to you? No, the best thing could ever happen to you is you keep winning and you're 29-0 and you're Habib Nurmagomedov and you're undefeated and for the rest of your life, you're the guy that nobody could ever beat. So no, but
yeah.
In reality, in terms of developing as a fighter, it's absolutely the best thing that ever happens to you. You talk to Aaron Pico now, and I love that kid, man. His personality, his work ethic, man. But, you know, I've talked to him recently where I'm like, hey, can you take me back to your first fight? Like, can you explain to me, like, where you stood and what you knew at that time? And he's like, bro, I didn't know nothing about fighting. I didn't know anything about mixed martial arts, but you don't know what you don't know. And so you need these lessons along the way. I always say it's nice if you can learn the lessons. Like, so let's say you can get rocked, you can get hurt, and then you can still find a way to win. You keep that undefeated record, but you learn the lessons of, oh, I better get better here. It's going to cost me at some point. So no, the best thing that could ever happen is you'd win, but you're absolutely right. You're spot on. As a fighter, you need these moments to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And I will say this about wrestlers in particular, man, they compete so much, as you know, and nobody as a wrestler is undefeated. They've all lost. They've all been penned. They've all had bad days in the training room, and they understand losing doesn't mean that I'm not good at this. It just shows me where my weaknesses are and where my faults are and how I need to shore it up. So I don't think this will break Patrick Downey as a fighter and his personality and his future. I think he'll get better because of this. So in that regards, yeah, it is the best thing that could ever happen.
For all those who did not see that on the undercard, if you guys want to see a one hell of a walk-off KO, you guys go and watch it. I think still Patrick Downey has a huge future in this sport, and his mullet game is on point. So now I said we were going to touch on the controversy and the judging. There was one particular judge that was in the middle of all of this, not just at UFC or at Bellator 289. He hopped from Connecticut on a plane, then flew to UFC 282 in Las Vegas to be in that judging controversy. That judge is Douglas Crosby. He was the judge. Now, if you guys watch this Bellator fight, he scored it 50-45 for Danny Sabatello. How anybody in the world can watch that fight and say it is a 50-45 is beyond me. You parlay that into, now another judge agreed with him, ironically, on this next one, but who can say that, you know, Paddy Pimblett won that first round? I guess there could be some weird argument that could be made, but if I'm looking at the criteria that he judged the Sabatello fight on, it's not the same criteria that he judged the Paddy Pimblett fight on. And that's the way I looked at it. If he was saying, hey, listen, I'm just looking for a guy who's diving in on takedowns, trying to get on top, this, that, and the other, then okay. But Paddy wasn't diving in on takedowns in round one. He wasn't the one forcing the aggression in round one. He did not judge the two fights the same. And that's where I think we need to hear from a commission or a Douglas Crosby himself.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, listen, when you look at judging, especially, you know, again, competitive rounds, that 50-45 score is unbelievable. But, you know, when you look at that first round for Paddy Pimblett, I just don't see it and I don't understand it. And here's the thing that also concerns me. And this is somebody that might not be looked at as much. Like, you're looking at the scorecards themselves and you're talking about criteria, and that is incredibly important. But I'll give you something else. Should you be judging high-level mixed martial arts fights on two different coasts of the United States on consecutive nights? I don't know that you should be taking a red-eye flight from Uncasville, Connecticut to Las Vegas, Nevada. Are you completely rested at that point? Are you completely focused? Are you completely in the moment? And to me, I mean, I know that may sound like a silly detail, but to me, I don't think it is, man. I think that's something that matters. Should we have officials that are doing this, back to back on opposite coasts of the United States, and maybe not necessarily well rested, maybe not necessarily in the rest? Because listen, these judges' decisions, I think that's what's most important about this is you have to understand it may just seem like a sporting result, but the way mixed martial arts contracts are structured, A, you're taking away somebody's win bonus, which is half their money. B, you're taking away like their win escalator. Most contracts are set up that when you win your next fight, you actually make a little bit more. So I lost half that night. I lost the more I would have made the next night. And then you're just talking about overall career trajectory and momentum and the matchup that you would have got. I mean, this is life-changing type stuff. At the very least,
Stotts almost lost his opportunity for $1 million with that.
There you go. Had one other judge had another way. I mean, this is big time stuff. But so that's a big side. And then to your point exactly is about being able to hear from him. I just wish there was an opportunity. And I've said this for years, and I'll continue to say it. I wish there was an opportunity for us to just at least hear from these judges to understand why. Because if they could explain to me, if a judge says to me, "Listen, here's what I observed. Here's how I factored in the criteria, and this is why I issued my decision." At that point, I can at least go, okay, wait a minute. Well, I don't necessarily agree with your assessment, but at least I understand that you were making an educated assessment, that I know that you were 100% aware of what you're watching, of why you're watching, of what, of all the things that you have. But we don't get that. And I get why. I understand why, the officials and the commissions don't want these people just out speaking in the media and Doug Crosby has done it before and hasn't necessarily done himself any favors. So I understand why you don't want people out there talking, but I wish there was some type of transparency, whether it was like a commission rep or, a head of officials or something like that could come speak to us as we see in other sports. I wish we could see that more in mixed martial arts.
The unfortunate part about this Paddy Pimblett decision and Crosby being at the center of it is with the controversy that Dana White, Ariel Helwani, and Paddy Pimblett had earlier in the week leading up into this fight, it gave fuel to haters out there, right? To Dana White haters that say this is fixed and this is that, and Dana has to deal with these judges and the commission. First and foremost, right? I don't know the commissioner, but I know, the deputy commissioner. There is 0.0% chance that they are being compromised. 0.
100%.
Jeff Mullins is above approach. I'm telling you that.
It's 100% true. But listen, you talk about that kind of, it's horrible timing right now because, think about, as we said, we've talked about the betting scandal that's going on right now, the investigation that's ongoing, right? And what's wild is I saw a lot of big time gamblers coming out on social media this week and saying, yep, see, I knew there was something shady going on, and I'm with you. I don't think it is, and I've said this for years, and I don't mean this in a rude way by any stretch of the imaginations, but to me, it's not so much about something being rigged. It's more about incompetence at times, and I hate to say that, but that's the way it feels to me. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong in my assessment of these judges' capabilities, but I wish we could hear from them, and I wish there was more transparency, and I wish there was a way we could follow up on that so that we can ensure that nothing. I don't think anything untoward is happening behind the scenes, but to anybody that's not maybe as dialed in as we are, that talks to these people, that's where I can see why they wouldn't see it, and I think some increased transparency would certainly help.
Here's what just drives me crazy about this, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, how the hell does this even happen? I'm going to go back to a point I made earlier. Is in the Sabatello fight, Sabatello's diving for takedowns, chain wrestling his ass off, right? Like, he got takedowns every round. And even though he literally doesn't throw a single punch on the ground, and Stotts is getting up, lighting him up on his feet, getting taken down, getting up, switching position, Granby rolling, doing all the initiating everything. Crosby gives Sabatello the round. You flip that less than 24 hours later, and he gives the other guy the round. I don't understand that. And there has to be somebody that comes out and says something. Now, your boy, the most acclaimed manager in the game, Ali Abdelaziz. I keep on messing up his name. Say it for me, please.
Ali Abdelaziz.
Abdelaziz, right? He comes out and he says, and I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to ask every commission out there not to have Douglas Crosby as a judge. I would like the support of all promotions these guys are running. These guys are ruining people's lives and ruining the sport. Enough is enough. We have to stand together on this topic. And who does he tag in this post? None other than no other than my co-host, John Morgan _MMA.
Yeah, it's funny. And so I retweeted that and I said, hey, listen, just so people are aware, if you feel like Ali Abdelaziz does, at every commission meeting, they have an opportunity for public comment where people can weigh in on it. Now, these public for 15 years that I've lived in Las Vegas and been attending and monitoring meetings with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, I've seen it used maybe twice where somebody actually came in and bothered to say something. And I get it, man. What's fun about attending a government hearing, a commission meeting? But there is an opportunity for people to at least say something. Now I will say this, if something is said in those meetings, the commission doesn't have to necessarily address it. Public comment is simply that. It's comment. They can listen to the comment. They don't necessarily respond to it. They can't make an action item on it, but they can at least hear it. And I think the more that it's heard, the more that things like this are being said, I think it's good, to where it's not just, hey, this is just people talking on Twitter. No, this is people showing up to the commission and saying, listen, we're tired of it. We need something to change. We've been talking about it over and over. I saw Eric Nixick, highly respected coach of Extreme Couture, send out a tweet that said, listen, we're all going to talk about it. We're all going to say, how do we fix this? And then we're going to move on and we won't do anything about it. And it'll happen again next Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. If this is the moment, let it be the moment. But you got to realize you have to stand in front of the commission and say, we're tired of it. We need change. We need something to be adjusted. Now, listen, I don't know what the right change is. People talk about changing the scoring system, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that that's it. I think the scoring system can work. What we need is to make sure that everybody is educated, that everybody is constantly bettering themselves, that everybody's constantly talking about, and again, transparency. Let us hear from you. Why did you score it that way? What did you see? At least that way we can say, okay, I see your point. However, here's where I think you got it wrong. We're not seeing that right now. And I hope that there's a way to increase that.
Couple last points before we get to Glover. Here's the wild part is that judges and referees for that matter, I can attest to this personally, is when the commission rep or the commissioner, they will come up to you and say, why did you do this? And they will put you on the spot in the moment. I don't understand why we can't push that forward.
Great point. They had these discussions. I see it happen. In fact, you talk about Jeff Mullen in Nevada. At the UFC Apex, it's really interesting because it's such a small place.
Jeff Mullen has done it to me numerous times.
100%. You see it. As soon as the fight's over, they'll all convene. They'll all get together. What did you see? Why did you score it that way? And listen, I'm not saying that these judges don't care. To be honest with you, as you know, man, a lot of these people that do this. People care a lot more than you think. But if they're getting it wrong, then they need to be educated. And that's all it's. I'm not one of these guys that's out here trying to insult. Oh, these guys are. I'm not. I'm just saying, let's get better at it. Let's keep educating. Let's keep getting better at it. That's what I'm saying. Not that there's, that these people need to go and what are we doing? No, but let's make sure we're getting better at it and let's show the public that we're getting better at it. That to me, let's make sure we're moving forward. Nobody's perfect in their job in any industry. Nobody can be perfect in this, but let's make sure we're getting better.
Last question. And you kind of said you're not looking for this, but it happened to Steve Mazzagatti. He still works with the commission. I see him at fights. He does scorekeeping, timekeeping, and he may ref in other regional promotions still and whatnot. But there was enough chatter, right? There was enough chatter that the commission in these high level fights were like, we may want to stay away from that. Does this happen now to Crosby? Because listen, I ain't heard this name in a long time. Couple controversy decisions in the past, but like you said, everybody has some of those. But when the chatter, the Twitterverse, the Facebook world, the Instagram, and these high level managers and fighters start saying it, do you think this is a moment where the commission says, "Listen, we got to wash our hands of this"?
I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't think it'll happen that way. But listen, again, and I'll push more towards transparency as well. Like, I don't think it should be, a witch hunt where somebody says, we don't like that guy, he's got to go. Even with Steve Mazzagatti, man, I feel bad because it was basically UFC President Dana White was the one leading the charge of saying that guy sucks. And I think the commission was like, all right, well, if Dana doesn't like him, the UFC doesn't like him, let's pull him out of these fights. And look, he made his share of mistakes on the way. But look, what I would like to see is more tangible evidence of how people are performing, right? You talk in other sports, referees, they're evaluated, right? I mean, they're evaluated and there's criteria. And then, how do you pick who's the referee in the Super Bowl every year? How do you pick who's working the NBA Finals, right? It's based on criteria of how people performed along the way. And that's what I would like to see more of, because I feel like right now it's a bit of a good old boys network, if we're being honest, right? It's a lot of the people that have been in there for the same position for a long time, and it's who you know, and it's your relationships and all that. And I get it, and that stuff matters. But
yeah, I get it. It's the devil, right? A lot of times.
100%. But what I would like to see is, why can't we have like, hey, why these people are on the title fight? Because I see it again, talking about commission meetings. What happens? The commissioner says, hey, I recommend these people. Okay, we'll go with those people. But why are they ones recommended? What if we had, again, a tangible evaluation and list of, look at how this person has performed against the expected norms, and that's what they're at the highest level. They are getting the most number of rounds correct. They are getting the most decisions correct. If we had that, again, transparency, if we had the ability to evaluate how many got it right along the way, and those were the 3 that are in the title fight. Well, why did you pick those 3? You know why I picked these 3? Because look,
tangible
they're performing
evidence.
better than anybody else. Tangible evidence. That to me would be a huge step in the right direction.
I love it. I think we need it. I don't like to see controversy in these fights. I don't like to see people's paychecks be affected. I don't know. I guess we just ended on that. Go, everybody. If there, you have to make a difference, right? Yeah, you can't just chatter. Facebook warriors, show up to a meeting. It's the way it's going to change, and either that or we'll just sit and bitch and moan, and you guys will give us fuel to talk about it every Monday.
Show up to a meeting and be respectful while you're there, please. Don't go in there and be crazy. Just go in there and say that. Listen, I want to see improvements. I appreciate you. Hey, by the way, my tax dollars are helping to support all of your jobs. And as a taxpayer in this particular area, I would like you to get better at your jobs and improve the sport that I love.
But they're not. They're going to bitch online.
You're right.
There we go. So we said huge shakeup in the light heavyweight division. Well, I don't know. It's not huge. There's no huge shakeup because
it's just a shake.
We're basically back. We're back where we started last week at this time, right? We were just talking about last week. Oh, undisputed title on the line, vacated by Yuri. Glover didn't get the shot. Guess what? Glover gets the shot. You sat down with our boy, Glover Teixeira, coming up with his title fight against Jamal Hill at UFC 283. Can't wait to hear it. Here it is.
Well, it is Glover Teixeira, who has had quite the crazy few couple of days, I imagine, Glover. I got to tell you, it's so funny. I saw you Thursday night at the World MMA Awards, and I said, man, I'm sorry you're not fighting this weekend. I know this was a big weekend. And what did you say? You said, man, don't worry. Things have a way of working out. It'll all be okay. And now you got a title shot. How wild is that?
Hey, man, I'm glad you say that. I'm glad you remember what I say before, because it's easy to say after the fact. But I keep saying this to everybody, people is stressed for no reason, and of course, like people ask me if I got mad. Of course, I got upset in the day that I find out that I was not gonna fight for the title. But I say no, I'm not gonna let this bother me. Let's live life. I'm healthy. I'm happy. Life is great. I'm fighting for the belt. One of the winners, because that's the thing. I deserve to be here. I work my ass off. I fight my ass off, and here I am, man. Let the universe take care of things and just do the right thing. Just keep focused on your goal, and the universe will take care of the rest.
A great life lesson for everybody, man. You lived it. So let's talk about Saturday night, man. I mean, the feeling of being there, as you said, you were relaxed going in, but the fight, was it difficult? Like, was there any part of you that was like, oh man, I'm supposed to be in there tonight? Or what was the experience like for you?
No, I want to watch the fight and to watch what's the next guys that was gonna fight. In my mind, I really thinking like I was thinking the whole time. Hey, this fight turned around quick. UFC need a main event in Brazil. They might get one of those guys fight in Brazil. This is my think. Nobody say anything, but I was thinking that. But then, come to the third round when Ankalaev was both leg hurt and the young had a cut over his eye, and I'm like, okay, I guess Brazil is not gonna happen, And then I see Ankalaev winning the fight, right? And I say, well, he's gonna win, but it's not gonna be in Brazil. and the crazy happiness, right? That decision that was like nobody understood. But hey, man, like I say, let the universe take care of things, man. Glover, you fight in Brazil. Let's go.
I love it. So talk to me, Glover, how you found out, right? Because you were watching the fight. You said nobody saw the draw coming. Dana comes into the press conference and I say, well, what do you do now? And he's like, well, we do Glover and Jamal Hill in Brazil. And I'm like, is that done already? He's like, yep, it's already done. So how did your night unfold? How did you find out, like, yeah, we need you, Glover?
Yeah, they just called me, in the backstage. I got there. I talked to Hunt and Mickey, and they just asked me, man. I say, let's go, let's
Simple
go.
as that. That's all
Before
it
they
takes.
before they say the opponent, I say, you want to fight in Brazil for the belt? I say, let's go, whoever.
That's amazing. So when do you find out Jamal Hill? Did they tell you that at the
No,
same
no, no.
time, or
They
did they find
say
out
right
later?
there. They say. I'm just saying, like I say
Yeah.
yes before, but also, I start say yes before say Jamal Hill, but yes, they say right there. They ask right there, and for sure they call Jamal. They talk to my manager because that's what That's what everybody say. Okay, we talked to your manager already, and we're gonna do it, man.
That's amazing, man. Well, like you said, it all worked out. You'll have some time, I guess, to prepare. But I guess first thoughts on Jamal Hill. I mean, this is a guy that's been making his way up the ranks. Have you been watching him? Have you been eyeing him as a guy that you thought you'd have to face? Or did you think you'd be sailing off into the sunset before it was time to fight him?
Yeah, to be honest, it's hard for me yeah, you're right, man. I'm in that position. I've been in that position for a while, thinking like, oh man, those guys by the time they get there, I'm gonna be out of here. But I still fighting everybody. But I watch him out here for sure. I watch a lot of his fights, and of course, gonna pay more attention now and see the details. But yeah, he's an incredible guy, man. Tough opponent. Very good fighter. But I'm just excited to be training for this, man. Be training for get the belt back, prove that I am the best in the world. That's what I'm here for, and I'm very excited, man. I just want to prove to go out there and fight the best. I wish like we have a winner in this fight, so But let's go. Vacate title is still on the line, and that's it, man. He can take something from a man when he earned it. You know what I mean? Vacate title was my shot. Now I got to do the work. The universe did it. Now I got to do my part and train my ass off and go over there and take that belt and make history.
I love it. So I was going to ask you how. So it's basically 6 weeks from now, right? So did you start training today? I mean, like, how much did this change your whole schedule and your whole plans of what you had laid out?
No, today's day off, man. Sunday. Yeah, it's day off. I train every day. I train every day this week. When I find out, like a couple weeks back, I think was on Wednesday, and I was doing the peak for fighting. I was sparring. I was scheduled to spar 5 rounds on Thursday, but then that's when I take that weekend off. That's it. I take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Monday I was in the gym doing my conditioning, prepare myself for whatever, be always prepared. And Miyamoto Musashi have a saying like, approach it to combat and everyday life should be the same. So that's how we should live our life, be already all the time.
I
So
love
I
it, man.
come
Well,
here, I train, we stay here for a few days. I train with Alex every day over here, the PI, doing conditioning at night. Hey, I'm good. Today off. Tomorrow, I might do a little run in the morning and fly, and we get back right Tuesday, man. We got that camp set up already.
pretty incredible, man. Well, as you said, the universe has a way of working things out, not only fighting for the title, doing it in Brazil, which I got to imagine is pretty special. And then where do we go from here, Glover? Is it the hope is win this and then fight Yuri at maybe Madison Square Garden, or how does this path continue to go?
Hey, man, we just talk about this. Let the universe take care of it. Just enjoy the present, enjoy this moment now, enjoy this news. Look at the rain in Vegas right now, and train and enjoy the training, enjoy the journey before you cross the tunnel to go to the octagon and get the belt and let whatever, man, whatever comes. I'm not trying to plan it too much, but yes, to be a special thing to fight Jury because just the guy that he is, man, the incredible heart that he showed. I have tons of respect. I respect, all my opponents, but Jury is a special one, man. The way he come back on that fight, the way he beat me in that fight, show the determination, heart, and warrior that he is, and definitely it'd be special to fight with him again. Yes.
I'm putting that into the universe, Glover. We'll let the universe decide what happens, but I want to see you
Exactly.
and Yuri, Madison Square Garden, right off into the sunset after that one.
All right, man. All right. Okay.
We're putting it out there. We're putting it out there.
All right. We put it out there.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, Glover, I know you're busy. You got a lot going on. So thank you for the time. A wild weekend, but as you said, let the universe happen. It unfolded, and you got a title fight in Brazil.
All right, my man. Thank you.
Well, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Ain't that right, Glover? You had your shot. You didn't have your shot. The universe worked out the way it should have. You got your shot. And I think, I'm happy for you. John, that's a great interview. Glover Teixeira. Love it.
Yeah, no, it was pretty wild, man. Like I said, the way I started out there, I saw him on Thursday at the World MMA Awards, and we shared a frosty beverage together, and I was like, man, I just feel bad for you. I know you're supposed to fight this weekend, and the fact that he had his calmness, it was like, man, don't worry about it. I'm just going to keep focused on what I focus on. The universe will take care of everything, and 48 hours later, he's got a title shot against a dangerous competitor in Jamal Hill. I mean, let's not write him off, but it is great, I think, how everything worked out, because I think that was the one part that everybody kind of felt bad about this whole situation. I mean, Glover Teixeira is such a respected figure in the industry, and the fact that, he kind of lost his title shot based on nothing other than Yuri Prochazka getting hurt and him not necessarily wanting to take on, Magomed Ankalaev on short notice. So it was an unfortunate situation. I mean, the whole thing still kind of remains unfortunate, but at least from that perspective, Glover Teixeira is getting his title fight and getting to do it in Brazil, his native country. It's pretty cool the way it worked out.
I've yet to see anybody disappointed with Glover getting that shot too, because if we're going to talk about nice guys in MMA, even from your interview, like he just seems like the most likable, lovable, big, Cabbage Patch guy that you just like me. He just seems like such a likable guy.
No, he really is. I mean, listen, and man, from being involved in the sport, I think that's one of the great things about MMA is there's so many men and women in the sport where you're like, oh man, they're amazing, they're incredible, they're great. There's so many good people in this, but then there's those ones that are just a level above, right? Where they're just like, oh, but that dude is one of the nicest guys in the sport. And Glover Teixeira, universally, revered as one of the nicest guys in the sport, a classy dude. And so you're right. I think as unfortunate as this whole situation is, and we still got to see how things shake out with Ankalaev. We still got to see how things shake out with Blachowicz, how they shake out with Prochazka. I mean, there's still a lot to be, kind of sorted out here in the UFC's light heavyweight division. But I think universally, everybody's happy to see that, Glover is back in the title picture and getting a shot.
You know what's crazy about Glover is there's an argument to be made that we never got to see him in his prime. The masses never got to see Glover Teixeira in his prime because he had visa issue, travel issues, couldn't get to the United States to fight. And we did not get to see him in his late 20s, early 30s. We only got him in his mid to late 30s. Now he's 43 years old, former light heavyweight champion of the world, going for 2-time.
100%. We missed a huge portion of his prime. I mean, he was one of those guys that if you were a hardcore, you knew. This was before MMA was, nearly as popular as it is today. But if you were a hardcore, you knew about this guy. He'd come in and, trained at the pit with Chuck Liddell and John Hackelman, and everybody knew how great this guy was. I got the honor of actually calling one of his fights in Brazil, which was amazing for me. And I thought at the time, I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm never going to get to see this guy in the United States with all those travel issues he had. Finally got it sorted out. We missed a huge portion of his career, but we still saw such a great part of it. And, it's winding down now. He's saying, look, he realizes he can't compete forever, but right now, man, we're enjoying the heck out of it.
Imagine if he gets that strap, Team Teixeira, 2 champions in that small little gym. That's awesome. Pereira
Unbelievable.
and Glover if he wins it. Amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable. Alex Pereira right now. I mean, and what's so cool, man. I mean, again, just talking about what a great guy he is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen that, but the scenes of how happy he was for when Alex Pereira won the title, it was almost like he was happier for Alex than he was for himself when he won. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing to see. It's very cool to see, man. A good dude. Again, I'm not trying to take away from Jamal Hill, man. Jamal Hill's a good dude as well, and he's on the come up, and this could be his opportunity to really make a name for himself. But Glover Teixeira is just one of those kind of respected figures, respected indies in the sport.
Go ahead, take part in the discussion. Go tweet me, _MacLife, and my man John Morgan at JohnMorgan_MMA. You can even bitch at us about the judging controversy this week. I don't care. I'll take it. Later on today, look for it dropping. My man John Morgan has got the second half of that title challenger in Jamal Hill scheduled for an interview. He'll be dropping it on his Twitter at The Underground, which is mixedmartialarts.com. I stood corrected last week. I just always typed in The Underground into the Google link and it brought it up. So
it works.
It works. But mixedmartialarts.com, they changed the URL. Make sure MMA was in there. Anything coming up this weekend for you or the rest of this week and this weekend?
Yeah, no, listen, here in Las Vegas, UFC Fight Night 216 is this weekend. Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. That's a big fight.
Woo!
But for me, I'm going to miss that one. I'm going up to Atlantic City. CFFC 116 is on UFC Fight Pass this Friday night. We talk about CFFC on here sometimes, so give it a shot. I'm looking forward to it. It's on UFC Fight Pass. I think it's going to be a great card, and looking forward to going out there in Atlantic City. Always a great way. And that's not even the end of the year. We still got a grappling event on December 30th as well. So a couple more shows left for CFFC.
Everybody make sure to check out CFFC. Don't take it from me. Don't take it from John. Take it from yourself. Go ahead and watch this promotion. It is the premier regional promotion. It sends so many guys to the UFC, always putting on stacked cards. Anyways, for me, I got a game tonight with the Memphis Grizzlies. I got a game Thursday night with Memphis Grizzlies. Friday, I got to fly out to Phoenix, do a game in Phoenix on Saturday. Busy week for me, but I'll make sure to catch up on UFC Fight Night in Vegas that you are going to miss. I'll be able to check out CFFC that you are on the call. Can't wait for that. But for everybody, for John Morgan, I am Eric McMahon. Catch us here next week on Cageside with John Morgan and enjoy the fights.